Wow. So that was Batman Under the Red Hood. Right away, I have to say, this is one of the best animated movies in DC's lineup. Not even one of the better ones, just one of the best. And I realize that sounds a little corny because a lot of people's favorite superhero these days is Batman, and it sounds a little cliche. Sounds a little cliched at this point to say, "Oh, this Batman movie is the best of the bunch." No, it's not the best of the bunch, or at least I wouldn't say that without thinking about it a little more. But yeah, it really is just that good. So I can't really think of a whole lot wrong with it. So before before I dive into this one, there you should know a little backstory. There are multiple Robins in in the Batman continuity, both in the television continuity and in the comic book continuity. The first Robin was Dick Grayson. I mean, he was the Robin that we most often associate with the character. He is he is the very obedient, very charming young ward to Batman. Eventually, he left and became Nightwing, a hero in his own right. The second Robin, or at least in the comics, was a young street kid named Jason Todd. And Jason Todd, people did not really like. Jason Todd was, frankly, a whiny little turd. So it got to the point where, in the story arc A Death in the Family, there was a cliffhanger. Jason Todd could have very likely died. And at the back of the comic book, there were two phone numbers. If you want Robin to live, call this number. If you want him to die, call that number. And the fans voted, and it was thumbs down. I mean, he was axed off. I don't really think a whole lot of people were sad, but it remains one of the most iconic moments in Batman's history. The the death of his young sidekick, seen by many as one of his greatest failures as a mentor and as a hero. And this movie is partially based on A Death in the Family, but also it is mostly based on a story arc that actually came out years later called Under the Hood by Judd Winnick. So the plot is sometime in the 80s, I don't know. Jason Todd is captured and beaten to within an inch of his life with a crowbar by the Joker. The Joker leaves him broken and bloodied in a building, and sets the building on a timer to detonate. Batman is rushing to get there in time on his motorcycle, but unfortunately he's too late. The Joker gets away, and Robin is dead. So the movie picks up years later, and Batman and Nightwing are being constantly trumped by a new vigilante on the scene, known only as the Red Hood. Now, seeing as the Red Hood was one of the Joker's earliest aliases, they naturally go visit Arkham Asylum to see if he knows anything about it. He does not, and this new Red Hood starts taking over crime syndicates in Gotham and attacking one of the most prolific crime lords in the city, known as Black Mask. Now, his motivations up to that point are unclear, but it's what is clear is that he has a personal connection to Batman. So that's the basic premise already. Very strong idea. And I'm happy to say that this movie delivers in spades. This is an extremely well told story. It's an extremely well written movie. It's well written, it's well animated, it's well acted. I will admit it did kind of take me out of it briefly when Batman finds Robin in the wreckage of the building. His clothes are completely intact, except he himself is dead. So that's something that kind of took me out of it for a minute, but you quickly forget about that in the grand scheme of things. So, voice acting. Bruce Greenwood as Batman. Already the second best Batman voice to date, in my opinion. Just under Kevin Conroy by that much. This is the closest they've ever come, in my opinion, to topping Kevin Conroy, because Bruce Greenwood brings a lot of what Kevin Conroy emulates to the table, while at the same time being a little more graveled, a little more hard-boiled, a little... I'm trying to think of the right words to describe Bruce Greenwood's performance in comparison to Kevin Conroy's. Greenwood, he doesn't really sound as natural in the Batman role. In the Batman suit, you can tell that he is putting on a voice, whereas Kevin Conroy just was Batman. But at the same time, that does not diminish how great Bruce Greenwood is in this movie. He carries this movie. He provides such dramatic weight and gravitas to the whole ordeal. And he really is a nearly perfect Batman. Very good job by Bruce Greenwood. And one thing that actually surprised me was Jensen Ackles as the Red Hood. Now, Jensen Ackles is apparently on Supernatural. I never watched Supernatural, so I'm not really familiar with this guy. I'm not familiar with this guy's work, but as the Red Hood, he can be menacing. He can be funny, very darkly funny, and he can also be very emotional and dramatic when he needs to be. He captures all of these facets of the Red Hood very well. And I'm actually surprised I haven't really seen this guy in more stuff. This guy's really good at voice acting. I don't know if he's done it before, but he was, like I said, he's perfect as the Red Hood. Like I said, he captures all of the different sides to Red Hood that this character needs to have. Very good. Neil Patrick Harris as Nightwing. Now, this was a casting choice I was a little conflicted about, at least at first, because right from the get-go, Neil Patrick Harris does not even try to be as dark of a Nightwing as, say, someone like Lauren Lester in Batman the Animated Series, or Scott Menville in Teen Titans, or that one episode of Teen Titans. Pardon me. But then I thought to myself, well, if they make Nightwing too dark in this movie, then I don't want to say you could get him confused with Red Hood, but there wouldn't really be as much of a contrast, and I think that's what they were going for with these two characters, is that they really wanted there to be a visible contrast, both in terms of how they look, obviously, but also in terms of their personality. And it's not like Neil Patrick Harris is like, oh, hey, I'm Neil Patrick Harris. No, he plays it straight, getting in the occasional one-liner. I mean, he's visibly more lighthearted. He's vocally more lighthearted than the Red Hood. But at the same time, you buy him as this, as the dark character that Nightwing is supposed to be. So, I've really come around to Neil Patrick Harris as Nightwing. Is he my favorite version of the character? No. But, again, pretty high bar to set with Lauren Lester, in my opinion, in Season 4 of the animated series. Wade Williams and Jim Piddock as Black Mask and Alfred, respectively, do not get much to do, but they are great when they're there. Actually, Alfred's best moment comes when there's this big revelation regarding the Red Hood, and you hear something fall off screen, and Alfred is just kind of standing there with this shocked look on his face. And the dinner that he was about to serve to Bruce is lying on the floor. He just dropped it. He's so in shock, and so that comparatively subtle little moment, without an inkling of voice acting, really does a good job in terms of, or really lends a lot of dramatic weight to the whole situation. I realize that's not exactly commenting on the voice acting, but it's something I just wanted to bring up regarding the character of Alfred. Like I said, Jim Piddock and Wade Williams are good when they're there, although they are not there as much as is probably deserved. But this is not their story. This is primarily focused on Batman and one of his biggest failures. And last but not least is John DiMaggio as the Joker. And kind of like Bruce Greenwood, he is probably my second favorite animated version of the character, because he's not quite as good as Mark Hamill, but the general impression that I got of him was that he was, at least vocally, he's kind of a mix between Mark Hamill's Joker and Heath Ledger's Joker. He's not quite as good as either one of them individually, but that does not mean that he is not a very menacing amalgamation. He is so good in this movie. He is so sinister. He can be funny. He's kind of like the Red Hood. He can be funny. He can be scary. He's a very good choice for the Joker. A lot better than I gave them credit for. Because when I heard John DiMaggio was going to be the Joker, I was like, really, Bender? They're casting Bender as the Joker. I don't know about that, guys, but like I said, he really surprised me. So the voice acting is fantastic. It's even a step above for these guys, for Andrea Romano. It's a step up by their standards, so you know it's good. The action scenes, namely the fight scenes, are very good. I keep using the word good. They're very well choreographed. They are very well animated. The martial arts moves that they're doing, the very acrobatic kicks, they're kind of hyper realistic in the sense that you don't really believe someone is going to jump 20 feet in the air like some characters in this movie do. But the action moves so fast, and they are trading blows in such an intense way that you don't really stop to think about stuff like jumping physics, because it is animated so smoothly and animated in such a way that yeah, it's fast paced, but you can also tell what is going on. Very exciting action scenes, and probably the biggest compliment I have to give is the real dramatic maturity and emotional core with which they treat this particular story. This was obviously a tough story to get right, especially in an animated movie. In a 70 or 80 minutes animated movie, this material this heavy is pretty tough to get right. And like I said, the actors, Jason Isaacs is another good choice, by the way, for Ra's al Ghul. He does a good job. But the actors, the script, the animation, the very dark, brooding, atmospheric animation really help tell this very mature story in a way that is sure to please casual fans of Batman and hardcore fans of the source material alike. This is better than a lot of the live-action Batman movies. And I do not use that phrase lightly. It is better. It's better than the '90s Batman movies, and I've heard some criticisms in the sense that it's a little too reminiscent of the Batman animated series, and it doesn't really use the Art Deco design. So that's one point of differentiation. It doesn't use Art Deco, or Dark Deco as they dubbed it. But I can definitely see where they're coming from, at least in comparison to some of the Bruce Timm-esque character designs. Like Batman has a square chin and whatnot. But I didn't really find it distracting, and I like Bruce Timm's character design, so for me it wasn't really distracting. Didn't really. Now, granted, can it serve as a distraction to someone other than me, and I may just be missing it? Possibly. Possibly. But overall, this is a very well told Batman story. It's a very well told emotional story. It's a journey. It's a major theme here is confronting old mistakes. And the very dark and mature way in which they tackle these themes. I mean, yeah, there are stuff that you could make fun of because it's a comic book, like Batman and Red Hood tackling these like cybernetic ninja looking guys. I mean, yeah, you could obviously make fun of that and say like, oh, that would never fly in a live action movie, but it's animation. You can get away with certain things in animation that you can't get away with in a live action movie. For instance, this is a major spoiler, by the way. When Batman is confronting the Red Hood takes off his helmet and reveals that he is Jason Todd. And it's starting to rain, and lightning strikes, and the adult Jason, as the lightning strikes, for like 1 or 2 frames, he morphs back, his face morphs into that of the teenage Jason. The very beaten, bruised, petulant teenage Jason. So, and then as soon as the lightning goes away, it's back to adult Jason. So stuff like that, very neat artistic tricks like that would be pretty difficult to pull off in a live action flick. And I think the fact that this is animated actually works to its advantage, at least when talking about stylistic decisions like that. So overall, I really love this movie. This is a fantastically told story. It's the themes of revenge, of atonement, are all conveyed in a very mature way, and it's one of the darker Batman stories. So yeah, definitely check this one out. Even if you are not really a fan of these DC animated movies, this is one that you might want to give a second look to. You might not want to turn your head away from this one. So take that for what it's worth.